What's up guys, welcome to Voicey here. This is your host, Captain Zach, and today's subreddit is r/IDontWorkHereLady.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.
This story's called, Your Name's Not Karen? Not My Problem. So, for background, I grew up in the hospitality industry with my parents, who, to those behind the scenes, shared the power of a general manager, although my dad was the one who holds that position, has for 10 plus years now. Seeing as some of my earliest memories are of hotel rooms, front desks, and the general drama that happens behind the scenes, you'd think I'd be immune or at least more tolerant to BS, but that's a story for another day. As I said, I grew up in this business and helped out a lot, taking shifts occasionally and running errands for whichever my parents were on shift. But I never actually got paid the same as other employees. By that I mean my parents paid me from their own pay, which is fine. I hardly did the same amount of work they did in the same amount of time, which meant I wasn't on the payroll. Therefore, I wasn't technically an employee. Remember that, one of the few pieces that will come to play out in my favor. Okay, I also have to mention that my parents have managed more than one hotel in my lifetime. And for the past several years, the common thing is for them to live in the hotel they manage, given it's in a completely different state than their house. My house now, thank you. So they have their own room. I can access it when I'm visiting because when I'm there, I pitch in and help out, which commonly requires me to have a master key. Yes, one that opens all the doors. They don't really look that much different from guest keys except for the markings or when the housekeepers wear them on lanyards. And the regular guest keys don't work after noon, which is the time you must be checked out or you'll be charged for another day. One more piece to remember. There are 5 floors in total, but technically the second floor is where guests can use a side door to access the parking lot and their rooms without going all the way from the lobby. It requires an active keycard to work from outside. Another piece. I don't tell anyone else this, and typically only a few staff members are aware of who I am anyways, the manager's daughter, so it's not really obvious. On my last visit, I was given a master key the day after I got there and was told they'd call me if they needed my help. I'm typically an introvert and stay in my room playing video games and reading, sometimes wandering out to spend time with my parents. Wearing jeans and a graphic tank top and flannel, nothing like what the clerks or employees should wear. I left my room with a book in hand, my phone, and a master key in my pockets. But you could really only see the outline of my phone, another piece to come into play. This is where the background truly ends and the story begins. I was going to head down to the lobby with my book and sit on the couches to read, to hang out with my mother on her shift. She's a bookworm too, so we tend to read in silence together, when as soon as my doors closed, the hairs on the back of my neck stood up and I could feel a disturbance in the force. Lo and behold, from behind me, I hear the sound of a wild Karen. "Excuse me!" My first thought was, oh boy. My second thought was, how fast can I annoy her? Yeah, I'm an introvert, but that doesn't mean I am uncomfortable with drama or people. I just prefer to hibernate in the comfort of my living space. Big difference. In fact, on occasion, when confronted with, well, confrontation, I find I enjoy myself when I annoy the ever-loving crap out of them. I mean, I didn't ask for you to bother me, so that's your problem. I digress. The lady is what I classify as your stereotypical Karen. Seems put together on the outside, but the inside is just a dookie tornado of entitlements and lack of empathy. I won't describe what she looks like because then people from the hotel would know exactly who she is. Anyways, I turned to face her, where I had been just about to step away from my room door, replying with, "You're excused," which I know for a fact tends to piss people off, but to be fair, it's what one is supposed to say at one's dinner table in response. Yeah, we're not at a dinner table, but still. "You need to help me, right now!" My third thought is, now, where have I heard that one before? Oh right, this is Karen. No, I don't. I'm just trying to go to the lobby. "Oh no, you're not. You're gonna help me." Okay, this is where I realized that I had 2 major options. A, get mad and lower myself to her level, or B, ride this out to the perfect "I don't work here lady" moment. While option A was tempting, I decided that I could hold off on reading for now. Fine, what do you need help with? "Well, you need to start doing your freaking job and bring my bags out to my car." Whoa, hold up. The hotel employees do not do that. We weren't that big of a building or business to warrant bellboys, and we had luggage carts and elevators for that particular reason. As far as I know, guests tended to understand that. Until now. Ha! Fine, you know what? I'll go along with it. So I head with Karen to her room, which was 4 doors down from mine, and she shoves this large suitcase, I'm talking everything but the kitchen sink large, into my hands and carries this tiny bag instead. The suitcase does have a handle, but when I reach for it, Karen snaps at me. "No, I said carry it out." "No, you didn't." Karen gaped at me for a moment before replying with, "Yes, I did, and do your frickin' job and do not talk back to me. I'm a guest." So Karen is striding ahead of me by a few paces while I'm somewhat struggling to carry this large suitcase, and by the time I get to the elevator, Karen is already standing beside it, where I set the bag down for a moment to catch my breath. Because, damn, that was pretty much my exercise for the week. Hurry up or you're fired! I really could have broken the pretense right there, but I decided that at the side door is where I'll drop the bomb. Karen hops into the elevator, and by the time I'm able to pick up her suitcase, she had already headed down. So on the stairs, I simply push her suitcase down each flight, hoping that I'm smashing a few breakables in the process. Yes, I was petty. Don't care. Karen is already out the side door by the time I reach the bottom with her suitcase. She didn't even notice that it had hit the bottom somewhat loudly. Before I pick it up, I check the time on my phone. 1:36 p.m. Karen was surely about to be charged for another day, or had been already. She had not been out of her room long enough to have met the 12 noon deadline, obviously. Therefore, her card would not work. Ah, karma, you show up just when I need you. So I walk over to the door with her suitcase in hand and open it, nearly throwing it out the door, and Karen screeches when I do. "You can't do that! I'm gonna have your job for that, you useless piece of bilky! Freaking bench!" So, not really mad, I stare at Karen amidst her rage beginning to rise when I don't start begging for forgiveness and simply say, "You can't really take what I don't have to begin with." "What? What do you mean?" I take a small step back from the door, but I keep my body kinda leaned forwards with my eyes locked on hers, so she doesn't notice the moment. I would have called her lady in this next part if she hadn't cursed at me and called me a bench and useless. "I don't work here, Karen. Thanks for staying," I say in a falsely cheery voice before I slam the door shut with all my might. The electronic lock clicks into place, thus leaving her outside. Did I forget to mention that she still had things in her room? Well, yeah. She was charged for another day, and even told my mother about the rude bellboy. I'm a girl and present as one, locking her out. My mother tried to explain to her that since she hasn't checked out or out of the room before 12, then she would be charged for another day, and that her keycard was only programmed for the night she paid for. Oh, and that we don't have bellboys. Karen eventually got her stuff, but still had to pay, and didn't get her security deposit back since she'd apparently damaged the doorframe of her room. All in all, bellboy 1, wild Karen 0. Thanks for reading. You know what, you gotta appreciate the patience required to pull all that off. Must have been really freaking satisfying to just toss that suitcase down those flights of stairs. I would have loved it. Also, how do you damage a door frame to a hotel room? Those are usually made of metal. How do you... What? This story's called None of Us Work Here, Lady. Longtime lurker, first-time poster. A certain YouTube channel who I won't mention, his ego is as big enough as is, convinced me that maybe I should join, and I guess this is a good story to start with. So, back in 2009, the company I'd been working for went out of business. Yet another victim of the credit crunch. And after about 6 months of unemployment, I was starting to get a little depressed, so my mom suggested that I should do some voluntary work just to give me something to do. After checking with the job center that it wouldn't affect my unemployment benefits, I went to the local branch of a national charity to see if they needed anyone. They did, and I soon became part of the small team that ran that particular location. Everyone there was a volunteer, mostly older, retired people, so being in my mid-20s at the time, I was given most of the physical work, which suited me fine as I'm not too good at paperwork. Now, I should explain that the charity rents out equipment for elderly and disabled people, charging just enough to keep us running and providing a little extra for any unexpected costs that might pop up. The only paid employee that we had was a manager who worked out of a different branch in another town, maybe an hour away. Our branch was located in a small building adjacent to a pay and display car park in the center of town, with about 7 dedicated, clearly marked parking bays. Given our location, it wasn't unusual for people to come in asking questions about the car park, and we all quickly became used to it. Sometimes we get people angry about getting a ticket, but they usually calm down when we explain that it wasn't anything to do with us. Now I've set the scene. On to our story. It's been about 10 years, so I'm going from memory. Here's the cast. Me.
Team leader. Volunteer 1. Entitled lady.
It was a pretty normal day, must have been a Tuesday given who was on, and I was down one end of the single large room that made up the bulk of the building, doing some housekeeping, when an older woman, I'd say mid to late 60s, walked in. I only looked around to see if I was needed to get anything, but kept out of it. Little did I know that I was about to experience what I now know to be a Karen in the wild.
Hello, how can we help you? Yes, I parked in one of the disabled bays next to the building here. Oh, and have you used us before? No, I'm just taking my husband to the dentist.
This was across the road that ran down one side of the car park.
Oh, I'm sorry, but those bays are reserved for people using our scheme.
Entitled lady cuts her off.
My husband has a blue badge.
For those who don't know, a blue badge is a government-issued disabled parking permit that's recognized almost everywhere in the UK.
I see, but those bays aren't part of the actual car park. It's a blue badge. We can park anywhere.
Note. No, you can't. There are still restrictions on their usage, but not everyone reads the booklet that comes with it. At this point, our team leader stepped out of her office by the door.
I'm sorry, but those are private bays. We rent them separately from the landowner. But my husband has a blue badge. Yes, but they're private parking bays. You obviously don't understand how these things work.
Team leader, leaning forward on the crutches she needed to get around.
Really?
Now, I'm still friends with team leader, and while she's a friendly, outgoing person, I've seen her when she blows her lid and decided that it would be a good idea if I stepped in at this point. Private parking spaces aren't necessarily covered by the blue badge scheme. Entitled lady glares at me as if I was beneath her notice, so I go back to what I'd been doing. I didn't pay much attention to the rest of the conversation, but eventually entitled lady stormed off in a huff and moved her car. Not long after, one of the volunteers, I forget who, was outside and saw her, having parked on the road directly outside the dentist, talking to a traffic warden. Note, the car park was private property and was overseen by a private company. So, a council-employed traffic warden had no say over anything that happened there, no matter how excitedly entitled lady gestured towards our office. We assumed that was the end of it, but would I really be posting this here if that was the case? No, I wouldn't. Entitled lady came back in, demanding to speak to our manager. Team leader is behind the desk at this point, and informs her that she is, indeed, the team leader, even holding up her laminated name badge that clearly stated as much. Entitled lady scoffs at this and repeats that she wants to speak to the manager now. Team leader explains that the manager is based out of the main office in another town, but dutifully produces a letterhead with the phone number and address, even writes on it the manager's full name. She grabs the piece of paper.
I'll have you all fired for this.
Team leader, volunteer 1, and me, laughing to various degrees. We're all volunteers here. None of us are actually employed by the charity. Entitled lady gives a hurrum that would put an enraged elephant to shame, spins on her heels and storms off again. We all laugh about it, but put it out of mind, as we have better things to think about. Then, about 2 weeks later, one of the trustees for the charity pops in and we learn what happened next. Entitled lady called the main office and spent an hour on the phone with the manager, not realizing that team leader had already emailed her an account of what happened. The manager tries to explain to entitled lady that no, we'd actually been in the right, and yes, she would have gotten a ticket if she'd parked in one of our bays. Entitled lady was having none of it, and informed the manager that she'd be taking it to her superiors. A few days later, a letter had arrived, addressed to the managing director of the charity. The name of the return address evidently being the same that entitled lady had given. Well, charities don't have managing directors, and as no one in the office felt like getting involved with that particular brand of crazy, the story having gotten around to everyone, the unopened letter was stuck to the notice board with a thumbtack. To the best of my knowledge, it remains there to this day. I have since found a job, but I still pop into the charity with tea, coffee, and biscuits from time to time. But I always look in the window first to check for Karens. The lengths Karens will go to get their frickin' way. Wow. Like, maybe I could understand if, a big old corporation sort of thing wronged you in some way, but it's a charity. Why do you care that much? Dude, and she was in the wrong. But I guess I'm going at this wrong. I'm trying to use rational thought to try to understand a Karen, but we all know nothing about a Karen is rational.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell to never miss an episode.